May I just ask?
My name is Joe Bissett, Plainfield. I'd like to ask why the Board of Ed's schedule in the minutes can't be posted on the town website along with their agenda. The meetings are now posted because I have the selectmen to post them, but I would like to see the agenda in the minutes, so that way anybody can go to that one site and see everything.
Thank you.
No problem, because we did correct that today, but thank you.
All right, is there anyone else who wishes to address the Board of Education during public forum? All right, hearing none, we will move on to student representative reports. And again, we will be discussing the budget during that portion of under new business under the agenda. All right, student representative reports.
Hello. For those of you who don't know me, I see a lot of people here. I'm Brooke Masso and I represent Plainfield.
I'm Jason Wallen and I represent Sterling.
We've noticed that there's still some very good attendance at our school, like 350 kids regularly showing up every day. And we're also finishing up putting in grades for our mid-report, I guess, before the report card comes out so kids can see what they're doing and get their grades together and whatnot, even though I'm sure they're pretty good. We also finally got a spot on Winnie Radio this year for some students to go weekly and speak every day. I did this morning. I don't know if you guys saw it. It's actually posted on Facebook on the Winnie Radio page, and you can watch it and see what's going on with that. And there should be a bunch of kids going every single week. It's on Wednesdays at 7.
7:05?
Yeah, and it's a 15-minute segment. So that's awesome. My cheer coach actually got us there and I was excited. And we also have the play. All the parts were given out, I think 2 weeks ago, so that should be awesome. That'll be in May. That's a long time from now, but exciting.
Yeah, so school's going good according to the progress reports. Grades closed today. So next week we'll just finish that winter break, and then yeah, things are going good. Winter sports are going really good too. I'm down the athletic hall. I see so many kids down there. It's looking really good with basketball, indoor track, cheerleading, all of them. And yeah, the attendance is looking really good too. You could, across the attendance office, you could actually see a board with a huge list of names of all these kids going to school, and it looks really great.
We also have 2 people in our school who are starting new teams. A girl named Kaylee Heath. She's competing for our school in gymnastics, and she's a one-man team. And we also have a boy named Keegan Marcoux in our school who is competing for wrestling for our team, and he's also a one-man team. So that's also awesome.
Thank you very much. All right, old business, budget and facilities report. Mr. Lucier.
Thank you, Chairwoman, Mrs. Astor. This report is going to be pretty straightforward. As you know, we are in a recessive hard freeze, and our efforts are showing as cost reductions. We reduced spending in October by about $156,000, and through the end of November, we are at a year-to-date underrun of $287,000. As you know, we have the issue of the $1 million cut to discuss. That will be taken up later in the agenda on item 9A. I talked to each of the facility leads, and they reported to me that there were no new facility incidents at any of the schools. So the facility report is clean with no activity. And that's it.
All right, thank you very much. Audit and closeout fiscal year 2017 budget. All right, just a note that the Board of Finance approved the transfer of funds to pay the expense accrued during fiscal year 2017 budget, closing out the audit. The additional special education excess cost aid more than covered that expense. Is there anything else that you wish to add?
But the audit is now closed and the fiscal year has been sealed as an entity. We were waiting for that so that the action could be taken to close that budget year. FY 2017 is now closed.
All right, policy adoption, purchasing. Mr. Nagel, will you guide us, walk us through our work on the purchasing policy?
It's pretty quick and easy. The policy committee last week met and looked at 3 policies: 3313 purchasing, 3313.1 local purchasing, and 3320 purchasing procedures. And we're asking for a very simple revision to all of those policies, which would add the text. Please reference policy 3313.2, written code of conduct adopted on, which I believe we adopted at the last month's meeting. So we're just looking to reference that new policy in those 3 areas.
And these have been posted, they've gone through their first and second.
No second was needed because
No second.
there is no substantive change. Because policy 3313.2 was adopted at the last meeting, all the policies relating to purchasing just have to annotate it. You just have to say that they align and reference it. So you can do it in one vote, and that'll just update all of our policies to align with 3313.2.
So I'm looking for a motion to approve the purchasing policies.
Move that we approve the purchasing policies 3313, 3313.1, and 3320.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. All right, new business. Board of Ed budget reduction authorization. So I'm just going to take a moment to briefly speak. Tonight, the Board of Ed will be taking action authorizing cuts totaling up to $614,571 that were discussed at the November 15th and November 30th special meeting. After a vote to authorize the $614,571 in cuts, we will be considering what potential additional cuts are necessary to reach the directive by the Board of Finance for a $1 million reduction in the Board of Ed budget. For the benefit of the 2 new members, I'm going to take this time to ask the superintendent to review the proposed cuts for authorization.
So if you picked up a copy, or can look out with someone, we have about 60 copies. It seems to be hopefully more than 60. The board met twice, on November 15th and then again on November 30th, knowing that they had to be building a plan up $2 million that was not formalized until more recently. And these were cuts that were either already put in place by November 1st or are now projected. When the board acts tonight, as they had planned to do, and I would assume that they will, this will show that the board has taken the necessary action to at least prepare for $600,000 in cuts. So what happened is we notified people in the beginning of November. There were 5 part-time custodians. It does reduce 20 hours per day of custodial services, and the remaining custodians have basically tried to figure out a schedule where they are covering to the extent possible so that the buildings are still clean and safe. But obviously, all these reductions take a bit of an impact on everything we try to do to keep safe and high-quality environments. We had a speech-language pathologist who left, and we were able to, because she had a part-time position, absorb that position, and another speech-language pathologist retired, and we were able to hire someone at a lower step. That saved $60,000. We had a part-time nurse reduction, because in order to make the cuts, we had 2 nurses at Plainfield High School and 1.6 nurses at Shepherd Hill. We took the nurse from Plainfield High School, and we have them sharing time. So she's spending about 0.6 of her time, 0.5 of her time at Shepherd Hill, and the remaining time is at the high school. Because the high school starts at 7:30 in the morning. She starts about 7:15 till 9:15, 10. She does the morning and makes sure meds are assisted. There is a full-time nurse at the high school that stays. And then she goes to help at Shepherd Hill because that's our school, the school that has it's designed to have more of the children from the elementary level that have specific special needs and so forth. So Because of that, there are students who have more medications. So we were able to cut the part-time nurse that was at Shepherd Hill. Again, a loss of a person. We also reduced the school year. We originally planned to take one day that was a half professional day. We made it a full professional day. By eliminating the day for instruction, that means no buses are running. That means that people that would be working that are on a part-time schedule would not be working. It saved an additional $35,000 to take the January 23rd day, which most parents know to be half a day. It's now a full professional day. But again, the board looking at trying to move a number of about 150 to 100,000 to 600,000. They're also planning to give up the 181st day. So over the past, the board has worked to go from 180 days up to 182 because the state requires at least 2 or 3 days of state testing, and they wanted to reestablish for the children that full 180 days of experience. We will now go back to the 180 days, and so that will save money for transportation and anyone who would have worked that day. We did a regressive hard freeze, which meant if you were to look at how much money we spent last year in a category, such as paper supplies or anything that was an item, not in salaries, but anything that was a purchased item. We looked at the 2017 end-of-year audit, and we said we're going to freeze the 2018 back to that number. Now, the difference between last year's budget and this year's budget is only about $350,000. But about half of that is things that we do, such as how much you pay for substitutes, whether you need a new cafeteria table, whatever. And so that hard freeze results in about $129,000. They're eliminating a grounds person. We had a person who is 1,200 hours a year. It's about $25,000 position, but we had an opening for a person who just retired. That person just bid on a buildings and grounds position. We're not going to replace the part-time grounds person. For those people who worry about the quality of our buildings, I can only tell you while these were a big concern, when you hear the next round of the $400,000, these are the lesser of impact on teaching and learning. Every child is still in school, they're learning, they're attending. We have 2 secretaries that have issued their retirement notice as of January 2nd and January 30th. And so right now, for the end of the year, we will just move our secretaries around until June 30th. We don't want to make a commitment that those are not needed personnel. We just have no budget, so we're going to exercise their natural leaving, that we're just going to hold on replacing them at least until July 1st, if there is money available, and we'll decide that between now and June 30th. We have some behavior management specialists who are absolutely providing a wonderful service. They're not direct instruction, but they help with the culture of the school. They do check-in and check-out when students come in and they don't have support at home, so they make sure that their homework is done and they're ready for school, and they check them out at the end of the day, so they're going. But they also help with recess and playground and issues where kids may be behaving inappropriately, helping them just through, not disciplinarians, helping the whole school think, if we see a problem right after recess all the time, maybe we can do something a little different after recess so those children don't get too animated. And so we're thinking of cultural designs that help our children be better situated in school. But they do represent about $60,000. They're not direct instruction, and the board struggled with this one very hard, but they're looking at, they would have to eliminate those positions. They're in Shepherd Hill, Moosup, and Plainfield Memorial School. We have reading paraeducators, not the teachers of reading, but they have support. And so there are 6 to 8 paraeducators who support the reading teachers, who have paras who follow children into classroom or even assist in their own classroom. Because of the reading teachers we have, and because of trying to cut some budgets, we are looking at a reduction in that area. Not of all of them, but we might have to take 1 for each school or 2 in a certain school where we feel that we'll have to rely on the teacher of record for reading to be the primary educator and interventionist for these students, because these are children who struggle with reading. So we have some resignations, and we're going to look at consolidating some staff. And also, Ron Lucia and I and our staff looked at every single line item. There are how many lines of code, Ron? 500?
Yeah.
500 lines. And you look at every line and say, if we only spent so much with the freeze, we probably could save a little more. An example, We spend about $250,000 on substitutes, so children have teachers when a person is out, and they do the same lesson. But what we're looking at is there's a possibility that, you know, you can cut back in that line a little bit because there was a year when we only spent $211,000. So we looked at every line by line and looked at where we thought we could make further cuts, even deeper than what a trend analysis said on the regressive heart freeze. Those total $614,000. And this board sat, they looked at an executive session to think which ones require negotiations or which ones may be challenging contracts. They determined that these would be the lesser evil of having to make changes. They do affect our program, but they affect it less and not directly on teaching of English, math, science, social studies, reading, writing, speaking, listening. At least it is the impact where it's the environment of the school, but not the direct instruction. That was their work to date. We're looking to see if the board is prepared to act, to show that they're willing to make these cuts now and start informing people. Some of them have a 20 or 30-day notice in their contract before they can go to the next $400,000. That's the first $600,000.
So discussion amongst the board at this point.
For these?
We're totaling up to the $614,571. I have to say that these discussions were not easy. We were in executive session for a very, very long time, and our Board of Education takes these very seriously because they are impacting learning. They are impacting the school, and they're impacting the quality of our children's education. So I know it's heart-wrenching that we're here discussing this amount of cuts and that we have to discuss an additional $400,000. Is there any other discussion? All right.
I'll voice one thing here. In the spirit of the line item reductions, you know, going line by line, Ron, you said there's a ton of line items to go through on this budget. Maybe we should make the information accessible to know how to access the education budget, to perhaps contextualize some of these cuts, to understand for those interested parties what kind of percentage cuts these ultimately boil down to for future reference, as the education budget is a referendum every year. So perhaps that's something that we could take the initiative on.
Absolutely.
And we'll do that upon your vote. We can't publish before you adopt it because we would be giving your information away, but if you vote on it, we will put up on the web the changes to the budget so they can actually see the budget in the entirety and the impact on finance. They won't see it because it's dollars, but we can contextualize it to impact.
Great. So at this point, I'm looking for a motion to authorize the $614,571 in cost reduction. Up to $614,571.
I'll make a motion to.
Motion's been made. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Any abstentions?
I just can't believe we have to do this to our kids.
I will abstain, having not been part of this process.
All right, we have one abstention. Motion carries. All right. Moving on to the second portion. The purpose of discussing the additional $400,000 in cuts tonight is not to take action on the final $400,000 in cuts, but to notify the public. Public participation will help the Board of Ed to select from nearly $500,000 what programs must be cut in order to achieve the additional $400,000 in cuts necessary to reach a $1 million reduction. These final cuts will significantly impact students' teaching, learning, as these cuts would eliminate services, programs and supports that have existed for many years. I do wish to note at this point that on multiple occasions, the Board of Finance was informed to consider using $500,000 of special education excess aid. However, the Board of Finance did not take that matter under consideration, and a directive was passed by the Board of Finance reducing the Board of Ed budget by $1 million on a December 6th special meeting. The special education excess cost grant was originally eliminated from the governor's budget, but has since been reinstated. Plainfield averages about $500,000 to $700,000 in the special education excess grant award. The reason for having this conversation tonight is that some of these cuts will upset students, families, and staff. The board feels that we need to host a public meeting to hear the concerns of parents, students, and staff before these cuts are made. I just want to stress that this isn't an appropriation issue, it's a revenue issue. We understand the importance of due diligence, especially to the town. If the town appropriates $35.5 million, but we're being asked to spend $34.5, we take this seriously. But these next cuts, they're going to cause harm to our students. So at this point, I'm going to ask Mr. Di Pietro to walk us through some of the ideas for the additional cuts.
I want to say thanks, but I can't say thanks. So I think what you're going to see is what you heard prior for the 600,000 sounded upsetting and harsh. These are harder. The reason the board is going to be asking for a meeting on Monday is because in this form, as you heard, someone wanted to speak, and you look at other revenue sources, and you don't get a chance to really talk. The board wants to have an open forum on Monday so they can hear parents, give you the chance to talk directly to this, and before they act on any of it. But you're going to see that what we did past the 600,000 because we knew some of these things will adversely affect. I don't want to stand too close to my buddies here, but these are things that if you look at it and you look at even the order. So we look first at could we ask for furlough days. We haven't got these granted, but one of the things we're looking at doing and we're putting out to specific unions and asking for everything that we can do, is that a possibility that we can save money in a way that doesn't affect children? So the first things we put out are things such as, let's look at and ask for and see if we can we acquire any kind of furlough or offset to finance. We also look at the fact that for non-certified, we could actually do a retiree incentive. In Brooklyn, it broke my heart that my grandson came home and said, I won't have tech ed after January, because Brooklyn had a mid-year retirement, and they allowed those people to leave in December. So they're not replacing those people. So my grandson is going to be on a different bus, and he won't be able to have tech ed. But we're all in this kind of challenge right now. So we looked at the fact that even if 5 people were to take a retirement incentive, if just the health insurance alone, as a more senior person who may be leaving, there would be some kind of savings. We won't know because we have to set restrictions on it. So if this part is adopted, that's why I said up to 600, up to 400, because we won't know what that is unless we try and we use our best good faith to go to the employees who have been supporting us all along and saying, is there something that you feel like if you took a day, could you lose the funding? And we've had a couple of people suggest they would do that. About 8 or 10 people came up and suggested, so I said, I'll write that, because even 10 people could be something like about $8,000 or $10,000 if we did something. You got to understand that if you give a furlough day, but you have to have a sub, the money's gone, so you really need to have a furlough day on a day when people may not need to be replaced. So that's a condition. Here's non-certified. This has reduced the budget projections for substitutes. If we actually just cut, for example, $25,000, as we get closer to the end of the year, we may not have teachers. You have more and more kids in study halls. We already have at the high school a number of children who are in study halls, and that's not really learning. And people would say, well, is a substitute going to do the same thing? In a classroom with 24 children, when a lesson is in front of you, it can happen. In a room, in a cafeteria with 100 children sitting there, less opportunity for quality learning. But without the money, we have to look at things that, again, still has a child in a classroom learning a content area. So these were on the fringe. And then we looked at, we have career coordination at the high school, quality person doing a quality job, but it's mid-year, can it save $10,000? We were looking at not nickels and dimes, but 10,000s and 5,000s to try to get to 400. We went through this line by line, even like a learning center para, but I gotta tell you, you go into the learning center at the high school and you look at the only continuity as teachers come in and out by period is the paraeducator who connects the kids to a math teacher who will be here in the next 20 minutes. I gotta tell you that even though it's listed there, I may have to find someone else, because while it's listed in the numbers, they will hold the number, it may be someone else and maybe not even a para. Because our paraeducators really are a valued part of our instructional team, just to be fair and on the record. But when you look at this and little things like the field trip, and most of them are already paid by families, but we have about $5,000 to $10,000. Some of it's been used, some of it hasn't. So we just said, we'll just stop it. If it can't be done by funding or asking someone or donations or whatever, we just have to stop what we can't afford to pay for from our budget, but maybe we could have people who might donate or say, to run this field trip. This is where I'm having difficulty already, but this is where it's going to be hard for people to understand. To look at making numbers like $100,000 and $200,000 and $300,000, we're looking at shortening the elementary day for Shepherd Hill and Moosa. Instead of them coming in at 9, they come in at 9:30. And that would mean that all the time in the morning from 9 to 9:30 would be a prep time for the teachers. And so they could get a lot of the preparation, and then instead of having art every week and music every week, you'd have art one week, music the next week, library the next week. So they would always get every subject, but they would be getting it on an alternating basis. And that would be able to reduce the teachers, the art, the music, and the library. And the reason we looked at that is because, as you heard tonight, Mrs. Sumner retired. She's an art teacher. I need to replace her. But if I take a person and I move them there, they have a job, I save that money, but what happens is then I alternate the day. So they'll get art one week, and then Shepherd Hill would get music, the next week music, Shepherd Hill would get music, and Moosa would get art. Same thing, the library services would go from week to week, so it cuts down virtually half of the staff in those buildings for those services. And it cuts significant amount of money, $100,000, when you're virtually shortening the day, shortening the hours for the people who work there that are hourly employees, shortening the amount of time that students will get art, but saving that money. That's $100,000. And the reason it's higher on the list, because every child still comes to school, every child gets lunch, they get recess, they get their programs, they get art, they get music, they just get it on a little bit less of a schedule. The difficulty with it is a half an hour a day for the last 100 days of the year is a 50 hours lost per child in instruction in this model. These are huge. And if you ask, why couldn't we look at something else? Virtually, over the last 3 weeks, we've been looking at everything. I just can't take a classroom with 24 children in it and just say 8 of you are going to go into 3 other classes. I can't tell the 80 other parents that they're going to have 26 kids in a class. I can't tell the parents of those children that they're not going to have their class anymore. And I certainly can't tell all the classes that are going to be taken up by those teachers that we eliminated when they have to take a less senior class and take those teachers and eliminate them. It's a disruption to learning that I cannot even recommend because it's not an appropriate opportunity. This is at least sustaining some form of art, music, library, instruction, and trying to provide the time needed for teachers to prepare. This one in here is eliminate spring sports. And you know how people feel about that. But you look at the amount of money that we spend on coaches, buses, transportation, officials, and all the other work that goes into it. And when you look at that, you have to think that's money. So people are saying, why would you put that in the mix? Because after that, even if we didn't want to do that, you say, save that one. The next one is math interventionists. At the elementary schools, children in K-3 have teachers, quality teachers who work with them. When they're having trouble with mathematics, they see a math interventionist. There's a math interventionist in Moosup, there's a math interventionist in Shepherd Hill, we have reading interventionists in all of our schools, K through 8. And so if you look at those 2 math interventionists, we could save as much as $60,000. The damage with that is, one, those children who need extra support for math are not getting the support. They will get direct instruction in the regular classroom. They would not get the extra support. And those teachers would have to bump some other teachers in a grade 1 or grade 3 sequence, and those children would have to have a new teacher as of January. So that's, to me, a higher priority in our mission, which is to educate all children, as much as I value athletic, sports, and co-curriculum. And then finally, we have our security officers. And the reason they're last on the list is because you need to know how many times our security officers are keeping the safety. We had a week where we had DCF in 3 times, and we had the police in 2 weeks 4 times because of issues that happen. Not because we have bad children, because we have a number of challenges in our society where children are acting in a way that is not going to be safe for them or others. And these good security officers have been a godsend for us. So they're here because they don't directly instruct children, and because that is less than saying we're going to lose a math teacher, an English teacher, a music teacher. These are part of our team. If you notice what we did, though, we looked at if all of these people were eliminated, there is some health insurance money we would save, and we also, I'm sorry, this is only the sub-average, and I'll tell you why that's it. The total amount is $498,000 on your list, correct? The reason we did that is because the board said from the beginning, don't give us the cuts that force us, because then the public will feel you're not giving us the chance to speak to you. If we tell you that the sports are so important and you have $500,000, you could say that we'll reinstate the sports. If you tell us that we want the security, we can save that within the frame of we need $400,000, you have $500,000. But what of these is not important? What about the elementary school? So I tried to show you that there's about $150,000, a little iffy because we have some things that we don't know yet, but we're at $600,000 now. This grouping gets us to $700,000, and we were hopeful in a conversation we would be able to ask and say, is there leeway for the Board of Finance to help us, stop at this point? But if not, the last $300,000 makes $1 million, and these are the programs that are forfeit at this stage. So we did it so that we could help people understand that we're not trying to say we're adopting them tonight, but we need to give this to the parents. They need to know the issues so that you can come here in an open forum. You'll be at the high school, but you'll be in the auditorium because we expect there to be more people if these things are potential. And we want them to be able to talk to the board so the board can take it under advisement and do their obligation, which is to make the cuts that are necessary right now to get to the $1 million. These are the not required or preferred. These are the values associated with these kinds of activities. And I know that people would wonder, what rock have you not overturned? I've been in the business for 44 years. I've had to do something like this on a couple of occasions, but never to this extent. And it's not the fault of the Board of Finance, it's not the fault of the Board of Education. In all honesty, everybody knows the cut came upon us. The legislature only cut $750, but the hard cut, or what's called the lapse funding that the governor felt he had to issue, was the additional $1.3 million. When you cut $2 million as a district, you have to decide where that funding will come from. Board of Finance took $1 million, projected from the fund balance to offset that loss they might incur, and they're asking us, and we're doing our responsibility. But this will take public input because if you don't agree, that's fine, but I would say as an educator, I think these are significantly factoring into the welfare of children. So we're hopeful we can offset it. We have not found anything. We just wanted to have a clear understanding of what we're looking at. That's why you're not being asked to vote tonight. I think you decided correctly to give the parents and the community a chance to think through this.
Okay, I need to allow the board to discuss these cuts at this point, and then because this was an agenda item and we had some people speak with public forum, we'll address those concerns as well. So discussion amongst our board.
I'd like to know if we could get for each one of these line items, it'd be nice to know, okay, you're saving $75,000 for this, how many staff, and students are being affected. Because, you know, if we can save $100,000 and it's only affecting 4 staff, 4 students, and we got 100,000 that's, you know, affecting 100 students, obviously the one that's only affecting the 4 students and 4 staff would be a lesser of 2 evils, I would think, as far as reductions.
Very fair. And
You know
just
what I'm
that,
saying?
yeah,
So-
quick example is when you do the elementary school, that's 700 children who will
Right.
get a half an hour less.
Well, like,
Correct, we can do
for instance,
that.
like, you know, sports, probably a lot of kids in
300.
sports versus, you know, how many kids use math intervention. I'm not saying one less important, I'm saying if the math intervention one affects less students, maybe that's the one to look at something. So it'd be nice to know if we could get a
We'll do that.
money to student staff ratio type thing.
Yep.
I just would also like to point out, this isn't just sports. We
Oh, yeah,
mentioned
that's
sports,
not-
but it's all after-school programs. All
Oh, yes,
clubs,
clubs
all
and everything,
buses.
I know, Ms. Mary, you
Well,
have
we're having issues wondering, that half hour, I know it doesn't sound like a lot of time to people, but as a teacher,
It
it is a big chunk of time. And is that going to affect our meeting the federal and state standards as well, if we cut back a half hour? And I know there are many people who are teaching art, music, etc., will not be happy teaching it once a week. I'm
Yes.
telling you, this is not going to fly, so we'll lose all the art, music, library. This is cutting deep on our, and our kids need this well-roundedness. And we're not going to get people to come to our town unless we have a well-rounded school system. And believe me, they're going to look at the school system before they look at anything else.
I have a problem just, I mean, at this point, seeing these, if you look at things like the math interventionist, and I think, my goodness, those teachers are working with students that are already struggling. Where are those students? They're going to fall through the cracks even more. It's going to become a gaping hole at that point. I look
It's gonna be
at
terrible. Parents are our backbones of our
I look at
classroom.
50 instructional hours lost, and that's a huge issue. I look at the elimination of spring sports and after-school programs, and we have students that are applying to college that are going to for scholarships for sports, and if we deny them their activity, I look at that's a reason for students that come to school that might otherwise not want to come to school. And I can tell you, I am not in support of losing our security guards.
No.
Well, being that the education budget is the largest item of expense in the town, this would sound like something that is quite appropriately categorized for the municipal stabilization fund, that I need to get more information on exactly how that's been dealt out or what the correct process would be, but I believe that we should make some form of request to the Board of Finance regarding its current status.
And what is the status on that with, they were supposed to have a meeting this week, I know you said they canceled it. Are they still gonna have another meeting to maybe give us some money? Because we requested more money, right?
Not the Board of Finance. I was meeting with Selectman Hendricks. She was injured yesterday. The Board of Finance, I believe, was meeting on the 20th. Yeah, on the 20th. The obligation the board felt is if you don't have your meeting with the public and make the decision, you can't go to the board and say, we've met our obligation, here are the cuts. They could take that under advisement. It would be nicer not to have to do that.
So
with
do we
the
have to
parents.
have, do we have to have another $400,000 in cuts before the meeting on the 20th?
I would assume you'd want to go to the Board of Finance and say we fulfilled their obligation.
okay.
They could then decide if they wanted to, but we're not here to put them on.
No, we would say, here's what we have, and then they can say, well, we don't have to do that because we gave them money.
We have to fulfill our
But
obligation.
I do have another question. Does this have to go to, because we went to the town, we received a $35 million.
Yeah, we're already under what they've approved for
Are
us.
we going to have to do a referendum to say, yes, that the town will let us take another $1 million off? Or, we've already been voted that amount of money. Now they're asking us to give
And we're
that
under what
money.
they approved, so.
Yeah, it was approved by the
Where's the legality
town.
in
So
that?
this is what, it's a,
So for the public, again, we're in uncharted territory. The state, when they did this budget cut, said that a town can reduce by an amount equal to the cut to the town in ECS. Under that design, it's usually when a budget is going to be approved. In our case, the budget was approved. The fact of the matter is, The town just basically said, this is an impact on the taxpayers and the fund balance, we're asking you to cut the $1 million, and we're doing that. I don't know if it takes a reappropriation, they're just asking our cooperation and support to work with them in this financial. I do want to share with you, I'm the superintendent, not a member of the board, but one of the things the board has been consistent about, and even in executive session now that we've explained what we did in executive session, said, on July 1st, we can plan for many of these things. If you load the classes in with 23, 24, it doesn't affect the child. If you decide you're going to discontinue certain programs, you can do it. Because on July 1st, a new year, people are informed before the year starts. Our big problem is it's the middle of the year. And students and parents have expectations of what is going to happen. So the dilemma we're in is not making changes. But to be ready for the next year and have that $1 million plan for a cut, everyone on this board said, if we have to do it for July, that's a realistic expectation to meet that. They wanted to make that known, and we'll include that in our communication.
To cut $1 million halfway through the year, it's unheard of. It's unprecedented for this district, and there's nothing left. We have legislators with us. We have Board of Finance with us tonight. This is a town. It needs to be a town decision. We have a student rep as well.
Hi, I was just wanting to tell you, like, the community, how this would negatively and positively impact some of us. Like, seeing what I see, the PHS career coordinator, I actually work with her very often with my life, what I'm gonna do outside of high school. So that I think is a little bit crazy. Like, older kids, like, we need her to, like, know what we want for ourselves so that we can be here and, like, be helping in the future.
And also to know how you're gonna get it.
And yeah, and like, how am I supposed to know I'm gonna like something and spend $1 bazillion and I hate it if I can't experience it in high school? And also, I come from a really bad like childhood background, and sorry, I'm like a mess. But my cheer coach has like changed my whole life completely, and I could never imagine not having sports. Like, how do you just do that? It's like a home away from home, and like a just like crazy to even think that. And also another thing, the security officers at our school, even though they don't like teach like math, English, science, social studies, they teach like life skills to students who have never had a role model, like a parent figure kind of. And I just think that they're awesome people and that we should never get rid of them, seeing as we've had huge terrorist attacks in the state of Connecticut, like 2 hours away from us. You never know, and they will take a bullet for anyone, and they're just awesome and keep us safe every day, including everyone here. If you're a teacher, they will have to get past the security guard before you, hopefully. But yeah, I think that some of it makes sense. Like a substitute teacher, sometimes they come in and they're just like thrown in and they don't really know. So like a lesson doesn't always get taught, and it is a study hall. And a lot of kids can take advantage of substitute teachers and just go like, can I go there? Can I go everywhere? And you're like, aren't you supposed to be doing your math worksheet? So sometimes they can just be random and like don't make sense, but some of them do teach, but I can see other things more concerning than a substitute teacher being thrown in so that you can be watched doing a worksheet. Because a lot of the time I end up in the library doing a worksheet on my own. So,
Thank you very much for your input, because
sorry,
the board,
I'm a crybaby.
the board takes it into consideration. We need to hear from students. We need to hear from parents.
I have a question for Ron pertaining those after-school programs and the spring sports. Is revenue generated through those events, like ticket sales to the plays and everything, considered as part of that budget number?
Yes, but it goes to the student activity account
Okay,
to fund other things for the students.
right. So would it be fair to say that the $75,000 dollar figure is more or less,
That's specifically related to the costs associated with the people that are involved in these programs.
okay,
It's not.
Like salaries and
It's
stuff?
not an offset from revenue sales.
okay.
Coaches.
I have a question also. Is there a way to restructure how that student activity money is distributed?
We have actually done some of that, effectively starting last year. I believe we went to Mr. Worth and asked that they take some of that student activity money and help pay for some of the items that were directly related to those sports functions, so we didn't have to put the burden onto the town.
We can look deeper. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
certainly, by Monday, if you're having that meeting, everything you're asking for, we'll have answers to.
Well, the impact of this is not just the amount of money that we're cutting for this fiscal year. It's going to have a long-term effect on our children. And also to our personnel. You know, people are going to lose their jobs. It makes me sick. It really does. Tonight we honored how many students? I didn't count.
8 of them.
But most of those students were involved in things like band, sports, honor society. We have a drug problem in this town, a huge problem. If we cut after-school sports, where are those kids going to go? They're free to be out on the streets and doing who knows what. At least when they're here at practice, they're here. And the parents know.
That's a big statement.
Ken and Ron, when you guys, when you put that together with the staff impacts and impact everything, since we're down this rabbit hole of cuts that nobody likes, can we add in, please, making kindergarten half day? Because if that is a lesser impact than like sports or something, I think it needs to be considered. I mean, we're in the zone of stuff we don't want to cut. So I think now it's time to look at things like that too.
That's 140 children.
And that would
How many do sports?
But that
I'm just
would
saying,
mean
we
we
need to do a
still
cost.
have to have them come in for a
Academics.
half a day, so that means more bus runs.
No, you run them in the morning, it's
No,
less bus
if you're
runs.
doing, if you want to cut them in half a day, that's what it is.
It needs to be looked at. Okay, I mean, we're in that zone of like stuff that is ugly. We need to bring up all the ugly stuff. That's all I'm
That's
saying.
academics. though.
That's academic,
That's
it's not
academics.
just.
Beg to differ on that anyways, but that's not the point. The point right now is we can't afford everything. We need to look at everything. I mean, no, listen, a couple of meetings ago, somebody suggested getting rid of all busing services completely. But nobody talked about getting rid of all the kindergarten. Which would have a worse impact on the town? Getting rid of all busing for everything? Or kindergarten? It needs to be looked at, is all I'm saying.
I
It needs to be
will,
looked at and discussed.
in good faith to everybody, I'll provide the information. I can't tell you that a bit of the impact so that the public was not surprised. There are about 150 students, and so a little bit of the challenge is that 150 students that are full day have to now shift to half day. So what happens is all those parents have to be notified they have to find daycare sometime between now and January. We have a 48% poverty level, so I'm not sure that would happen. However, we have an obligation to look at every expense. The other part of the problem is if you reduce 4 teachers, in addition to telling the 140, 160 kindergarten, those 4 teachers now have to replace other teachers. You're going to take 100 more children in grades 1, 2, or 3 and replace those teachers and tell them to leave because those teachers are not least senior. So you're going to upset another 100 children for their main teacher. So, and then we have to add midday busing, which is about, it's been costing us about $20,000 in the middle. But that doesn't, all it means is there is a savings, we'll do that. We're going to look at the savings.
If extra buses, to save enough, then I think we did look at it.
Right, we just have to put the savings against educational impact.
We're gonna have 4 teachers, we're gonna pay.
We gotta pay out unemployment.
And then, yeah, I'll do that all for you though.
There's a lot of things involved in
I mean,
it.
I appreciate the comment about all-day pre-K, but changing that midstream, mid-semester, that's, none of these cuts are anything any of us up here want to do.
Great, so at this point, we're not making a decision tonight because these will take more time. We need the information. We owe it to the public, we owe it to the parents, the students, the staff, families, community to be able to come out and speak and to address us. This is the first notification of what has been on the $400,000 chopping block. There is a Board of Finance meeting scheduled on December 20th, this Wednesday.
Next one.
Next Wednesday, I'm sorry. If we want to have the meeting before then, that meeting would need to be on Monday, the 18th. If we wish to have it after that and to discuss, we can hold it on Thursday, December 21st. But I feel that we will need to pick a meeting date.
That's what I was talking to Ken about earlier. If our directive right now, before their meeting on the 20th, is to cut $1 million, then we might as well have the meeting on the 18th and come up with a cut of $400,000 to present to them, in hopes that they will come back to us at that meeting and say, "Our bad, here's your money." But it would be, I think, it would move us to have those cuts in place.
Like the gentleman asked that question about the $500,000. I mean, that's money that is earmarked for special education that a lot of towns give back to the Board of Ed.
That's a revenue, so
That's
the
a
Board of
revenue, it
Finance
goes to the
controls
Board
that
of
cost.
Finance, it
But a
doesn't
lot
come
of
to
towns
us.
give it back to the Board of Ed.
We have to request it, though. That's the
The
thing.
municipal stabilization grant, again,
And
can
a lot of
be,
that money in the rainy day fund is from that special ed.
and the municipal stabilization grant, if I understand correctly, can be used for anything.
That's what it said. So,
And-
but we should still have a plan, I think,
But anyway.
to go into Wednesday with, right? So when we have Wednesday as their guests,
Yeah.
we should have a plan of, here, we have $400,000 cuts in
And
place.
we should, if everything should be in the block, I agree. I mean, we should put the all-day pre-K on, just to know what the cost is. Although I can't see
Probably not
cutting
gonna come
that
out to very much.
midstream. I
Because
just
of the
can't.
other
I
stuff.
mean, maybe something from the next year, but, people
But,
People make
talk about
plans, and
sports, I
they've
mean,
taken jobs, they've done all this stuff, and now we're gonna say, we can't, I can't think of it.
Public relations wise, if there was a possibility to recover 300,000, it would be better to hold the parents because the public relations will be horrible on Monday and it just will hurt people to think they had to fight for programs and then hear a decision whether it was cut or not, but it could be restored. But we don't know that and we can't put that expectation on the Board of Finance. So I think we have to do the Monday meeting just so that you can look at what it is you would have to cut.
Well, if we have that Monday meeting, ostensibly, we're gonna hear from
hundreds of people.
the people, I mean. That's not all the time.
And
Well, listen,
still make decisions.
I know you want to have a life before Christmas. You could have the meeting, go to the board with that information, and then say you would make your decision in a 20-minute meeting on the 21st to see if there's any negotiating opportunity. If you don't want to make the cuts, I don't
Or
know how to help you.
do we just want to have a meeting on the 21st then and see what they say? If they say we still have to make the cut, then we have a quick meeting on the 21st to make the decision?
And let me be clear, I will come to meetings every single night if it means preserving
Yeah.
our children's education
I'll do
and
whatever.
our community members' jobs. I don't need the time off, I'm gonna keep fighting for
But if we want to
these.
let the town people, if we want their input, if we have a meeting on, I can go to a meeting on Monday, I'll do it. Will the people, who aren't here,
Well, what would be
obviously.
the purpose of the meeting on Monday? Just hear from people or also make a decision?
I think part of the concern is you have 2,400 children in the schools.
Right.
That means they represent 40% of the population.
Okay.
A large part of the population is saying, we're on a fixed income, we just want you to cut the schools. That's been said. Go on
Yeah.
Facebook, you can see a comment.
Post-
That doesn't mean it's what the parents want, and the parents haven't had a voice because they haven't known what the cuts will be.
Right.
If the parents come to you and you have 300 or 500 people, you should expect more when they hear this. Then maybe people will see that we're trying to do the best we can, but these are not wished for or willed cuts, that they're hoping that somehow we can find balance and we made 600,000, make a few more, but don't lose the programs that I believe parents and children want.
So we're going to meet on the 18th, is that right?
I think it's in your best interest. I think it's in your best interest.
Where would that meeting be?
At the high school in the
In
auditorium.
the auditorium.
You won't have room for the meetings.
7 o'clock, what time?
We do have Senator Summers and Representative Dauphinais with us tonight. Is there a comment that you wish to make?
Yes, hello, good evening. My name is Heather Summers, and I am your senator from the 18th District. I want to be clear that right now, the legislature is a moving target, unfortunately, as far as where we are with what we have appropriated in this budget. And first of all, I'd like to apologize to you. I'm new. This has been happening for years, and our state just does not have the funds to fund everything. And unfortunately, the first budget that passed, which was a bipartisan budget, Plainfield was made almost whole, but the governor vetoed it. And unfortunately, in the second round of budget negotiations, the pool of education itself had shrunk, and there was not enough money to be allocated to districts. Pretty much every town that I visit is having the same conversations that you're having. And they're difficult, they're unpleasant, and I wish they were different, honestly. But we have to keep in perspective that at the beginning of this legislative season, or the session, I'll call it season because it's continuing, there was a CBAC bill that passed that is now taking up 53% of the entire revenue for the state of Connecticut. So there is literally very little left to go around. I am the vice chair of education. Education is a huge priority for me. Anne, myself, and Kevin Skolchak did everything we could to preserve the funding that you have right now. And as I said, the first budget, you were in a much better situation than you are now. I want to be clear that currently, at this moment in time, you are only legally allowed to reduce your budget by what has been reduced in your appropriation. So if you have been reduced 700, I don't have the exact figure in front of me, you cannot reduce your school budget to $1 million. You can only reduce it by the amount that we have appropriated. There is discussions going on right now, and we are trying to go back into session. Unfortunately, one, I don't want to name them, but it wasn't our caucus. One particular caucus is holding up the ability to do that. They don't want to go in before Christmas. We want to go in Christmas Day if we have to fix certain things. It looks like it won't be till after the first of the year that the legislature will go back. And at that time, it could be that the legislature decides to allow you to reduce your budget, including the governor's holdbacks. I don't think that will happen because I think there's a very big push to try to go back to the original budget and get you more education funding.
So right now, the most that could be cut is 750,000?
Right at this moment in time, yes.
That basically would preserve the programs we've asked for. That's amazing.
That's why I wish you let me speak. But, because of the minimum budget, you can only reduce your school budget, as you're well aware, being on the Board of Education.
Yep.
You have to keep it the same, but because we have decreased the appropriation to Plainfield, you are only allowed to decrease it by the amount of the decrease in the appropriation you get from the state of Connecticut. There are some additional items if you have, additional loss in enrollment. It's very minimal, though, what you're allowed to reduce. The question has been asked, though, because you were reduced $750,000, and then the governor added his big Christmas gift to you of 1.3 on top of it. Can you reduce it by almost $2 million? And right now, the answer is no, you cannot. You cannot go above that $750,000. So I hope that helps in your discussions. I'm not sure it will, but I just want to make sure that you're clear because we don't want anybody doing something that is not legally allowed at this point in time.
That would be huge. That would save our sports, that would save our elementary, it would save our reading specialists, and
it could be...
That would be a godsend.
Yeah, I don't want to... That is the law. So it could be that, we could possibly have an even better outcome when we go back in. I don't want to give you any false hope because we are now looking at, again, another deficit, and it'll probably continue to grow between now and the time we go back in. But I just want to make sure that legally, where you are and what you can do. So, you can plan accordingly.
Learning that information, I'm wondering if we should wait until Thursday for the meeting.
Because the Board of Finance needs to hear about
The
it.
Board of Finance will need to hear that.
Can I just get some clarification on one point there? You said under the current existing law, as of this moment, we cannot cut more than what we have had reduced in our appropriations. But you said there's also actively trying to open up session again right now?
No, we will be going back into session. The hope is we will be going back, hopefully the 23rd, maybe, to fix one particular thing, which is the Medicare savings plan. But we will be going back in after that to look at different items within the budget that are out of balance. And there is also a movement to look at education funding. There's also a movement to perhaps have this clarified. If the governor has added these additional holdbacks to a school district, do they then have the authority to reduce their school budget by the holdbacks? I would guess that that will not be allowed, but I can't say. That is something that we will be having a conversation about. But right now, the law is the MBR still stands, and you can't spend less than you spent the year before based on your appropriation.
I know most of the state is well aware of the atmosphere of budget cuts, and I, for one, would be a little concerned about the language in the MBR changing going forward when Hartford reconvenes. And I know the last thing anybody would want to do is have this discussion go false start, and just repeatedly.
The MBR changed this year because the MBR used to say you can't spend any less than you did the year before, regardless of what the state used to. And this year we were able to change it and say, if we reduce your funding, because towns like Groton were looking at an $18 million reduction, they needed to have the ability to reduce their school budget. So that the MBR did change a little bit this year to be able to give towns some relief based on the funding they were getting or not getting from the state.
With that information, I think the board should wait because the Board of Finance should have that. If they take that under advisement and allow it, we probably can make this work for parents, for the board, for everybody. I still know it's still a financial issue, but I think we can work hard enough to make sure that the town is made whole in this. No one gets hurt. That's actually, for us, a great compromise. But
and, you know, the municipal stabilization grant, you can use it as you see fit.
well, that's the Board of Finance.
Just, I wanted to clarify that.
I appreciate that, though.
Yes.
Representative Dauphinais, the Board of Finance meeting is next Wednesday on the 20th.
Just letting you know that that is your purview, you know, your town's ability to.
You definitely, you need to be there.
Somebody.
Right, we do.
Mr. Turtle, do you have anything else?
Well, yeah, because my question didn't get answered, so $500,000, how do you, does the town have that money now? And if they do, how did you request that money to be given to you?
Let me explain. The special education excess aid was already factored into the town side. It's not new money. It was money that they already built. When they built your tax levy, they built that understanding that they could get $500,000 to $700,000. The reason we asked about that money, because many communities do use it as an offset, is because the governor took it away. He said there'd be no special ed excess aid at the beginning. So they lost $750,000, we lost $5 million. When that was recovered, the state special ed excess aid was given back to the town, but we're still $2 million short. So we were just asking, can part of that be used as an offset? So please don't think that it's new money, why can't you ask for it? It's their money, it's the money they already planned on. The stabilization money is different and new. That was never anticipated. That's new and unexpected. But again, that's their money. This is very new, and I appreciate the clarification that even if that amount of money, if the limit is $750, if you look up that list, you're going to see that we're already at $600. $100,000 more to add didn't go into elementary schools and sports and math and the security office. It didn't go there because we got to the $750. That certainly would show the public as a whole that the town and schools are struggling, but they are trying to work together so that everybody feels that we got through this year. July 1st, we have a new rule. We have to live by a new financial existence. But between now and June, that would be great. So I really would suggest delay so that the Board of Finance just could take this information under advisement. Give them a chance.
Yeah.
You know?
Can we make sure they get this information?
Well, you have Board of Finance members here, you know. We don't want to put on the spot, they're here, but we would have to write that so they know. Yeah, we would write it and ask.
One last thing that I got information today. The state right now has shorted Plainfield $1.6 million so far from what they normally get for money. So normally by now, they've already collected $4.4 million. Right now, the town of Plainfield has only got 2.8 from the state.
That's in the ECS funding. In October, we should have got, right, they cut 1.6 million.
And they're afraid they're going to have to go into the general fund to pay bills.
They took care of it. The board and the finance director did a good job making sure that expenses didn't force them going into the
I'm
fund.
telling you, this email came out today to me about
Oh.
1 this afternoon. So.
I just want to give credit where it's due.
All right, so tentatively, we will be setting the date for the public meeting as the 21st, but it sounds like we really need to meet with the Board of Finance. So on the 20th, I'm hoping that our members will come out to be able to meet with the Board of Finance.
Do we have a time for the tentative meeting?
It would be 7
It
p.m.
would be 7 p.m.
No, the board is at 6. They changed it, right? Didn't you change your schedule? And what about this one that's coming? Oh, it's still 7?
It's 7 for
It is
December.
7 p.m.
7 p.m.?
Okay. I know that you picked a new hour to start. 7 o'clock on the 20th?
All right, so we're going to, at this point, we'll have the Board of Finance meeting on the 20th and a tentative public meeting on the 21st at 7 p.m. We will notify everyone as we need to. We're going to dispense with the superintendent's report, move to standing committees. Yep, just please remember to hand in your subcommittee surveys and I will take them under advisement and notify everyone at the January meeting. With that, our meeting is,
We're going to be at the Auto Plus.
yes, the public meeting would be in the auditorium at 7 p.m. on the 21st.
And the Board of Finance is at the Town Hall.
I would just like to take a moment to thank the Board of Education for their diligent work over these past several months with special meetings discussing this budget. I know there's been many sleepless nights. It really does matter. I want the public to know that it does matter to each and every one of us and that we are a community. All right, with that, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries.